Brewbound exclusive.
Chris here, hanging out at Brewbound headquarters, and we're here with a pretty neat individual, local guy, Eric Fitch, with Purpose Energy, and he's going to tell us all about this really cool product that he's developed for breweries to use to recycle their waste, basically, right?
That's right. That's right.
So, how did you come up with this idea? How did this all start?
Well, it was over beers, if you believe it or not.
I mean, I can believe it.
So I was right over here at the Chili's by the Burlington Mall. Okay. And a buddy of mine walked in. We used to play in the Lexington League softball team together. And he says, "Hey, I quit Raytheon. I'm working at Harpoon." And at the same time, I was thinking about trying to do a renewable energy, waste to energy company, and I really needed a bite-sized opportunity. And he said that, and I thought, oh yeah, beer brewing, right? Because I've been a home brewer since the mid-90s or something, and I know what kind of waste goes through the brewing industry, and I wasn't aware if anybody was really doing anything in the space. So I went down to Harpoon here in Boston, and the guys there were very generous with information. Right, they were so helpful. They gave me samples of material that I could send to labs. They told me how much materials are required per barrel of beer, so I could come up with this normalized model of a brewery with all the goes intas and goes outas, right? And then I did the science part in the background, and eventually came upon what looked like a pretty good business model.
So aside from being a home brewer and an avid softball player in your spare time, what were you doing before you started this? Obviously you have some tremendous knowledge of the bio field.
Oh, I don't know about that. I've been in a lot of industries. My whole career has been in startup companies, but it was stuff like biowarfare hazard detection and smart materials and healthcare IT and things like that. This was one where all the time before I was working on somebody else's startup, and I thought, you know what? I want to do my own startup. I got enough runway. I can work on whatever I want, right? What things do I want to work on? How about renewable energy and beer?
Two very popular items right now.
That's right. That's right. So here we are, saving the earth, one beer at a time.
That's great. That's great.
So we call it the BOB.
The BOB?
It's an acronym for the biphase orbicular biodigester.
Okay.
And the BOB, it's a big tank, and we just installed our first one at Magic Hat.
I'm sorry. What does that even mean? Say it again.
Biphase orbicular biodigester.
Okay.
Right. I don't know. It's just one of those things that comes out through patent speak, but it's this big tank, and we put all the waste from the brewing industry in it, right? So we can take their wastewater from CIP in their tanks. We can take all the spent yeast.
Okay.
You make beer, you make a lot of yeast too,
yeah.
right? It's hard to get rid of it sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But we can put that yeast in there, and then the spent grain. You take a lot of the sugar out of the grain, but when you're done, you still have a lot of protein and hemicellulose and lignocellulose. And what do you do with that, right? Sometimes you use it as a feed supplement for cattle and hogs, but our idea is a little bit different. Instead of having 3 different programs for these 3 different wastes, what if you put them all in this big tank, the BOB, right? And inside the BOB, we feed all of this stuff to bacteria, right? And the environment is controlled. We control the temperature. We make sure there's no oxygen in there, so it's a big hermetically sealed tank. Okay. And then when the bacteria, when they eat this stuff with no oxygen, they go into this state that's called anaerobic, right? Their respiration cycle is anaerobic. And in an anaerobic respiration cycle, the byproduct, it's not just carbon dioxide, it's also methane, right? And methane, right, that's the same thing that is in natural gas, right? Which is significant because how does a brewer make beer? They use a lot of natural gas.
Right.
So what we can do is we take their waste, we turn it into natural gas, and then we deliver the natural gas back to the brewer to make more beer. The size of the thing, it depends really on the size of the brewer.
Okay.
And that's just because the more barrelage they make, the more waste they make. So let's just say like a 250,000 barrel year brewer, right? And I know there aren't a whole lot of them that are exactly that size, but a 250,000 barrel year production of waste would require a digester that's about 500,000 gallons. Right? And so 500,000 gallons, that's 50 feet in diameter, 40 feet high.
Okay.
right? And that's got some headspace in the top for gas storage too. But you know, this is about the scale of the tank, and everything goes in there from the brewery. And so then that is going to make about as much gas as that brewer is going to need to make their beer. Right? Think about all the ground temperature water that's coming in. Right? You know, for example, in Vermont, it might be coming in at 40 degrees Fahrenheit. But you first got to bring it up in the mash tun to around 150. Right, to do your starch conversion. And eventually you're going to be introducing 170 degree water or something like that for your sparge. And then you're going to put it in the kettle and you're going to boil it for an hour, hour and a half, depending on what kind of beer you're making. But that's a lot of energy, right? We can produce that much energy, almost. Something like 80 to 90% of it.
Just with one brew. So one round of them brewing goes into the bob, and you'll produce at least that much energy.
Yeah, so it's kind of a continuous process, right? So they keep making waste, and we keep making gas, right? They keep making more beer, so they use more of this biogas. Now, that's only half the story. The other half of the story is when you put things down the drain, it has to be treated, right? It's got some pollutant properties in there that have to be removed before you can discharge it to, say, Boston Harbor or Lake Champlain or the Ohio River or something like that. The one that people charge you for most of the time is called biochemical oxygen demand, and it's a metric for how much oxygen can this liquid soak up, right? That's important because if you put this liquid in your waterway and it soaks up the oxygen, you can suffocate your fish, right? So you have to remove that oxygen demand before you discharge it, right?
So your process is already doing that.
That's right. So instead of paying the city to do that, we do that on site. And now we have two values that we provide. One is wastewater treatment, and the other is this gas.
All with one machine.
All with one machine, which is cool because usually when you look at today's renewable energy solutions, most of them need some kind of a subsidy in order to make sense financially, right? Because we get a 2-for-1, it actually makes it a profitable business.
Cool. So now you guys got Magic Hat on board, and who are some of your other prospects? I mean, to me, as a guy who likes to drink beer, as somebody who's in the industry and writing about beer all the time, it seems crazy to me that every brewery wouldn't want an item like this to utilize. So how do they get their hands on it? How does a brewery contact you?
Yeah, see, that's our hope. Hopefully we can grow this business and we become more than just a one-plant company. And truthfully, there's an economy of scale. So the bigger the facility, the better the economics sugar off. So I think kind of the lower threshold, I'm still trying to dial it in, but I think it might be around 100,000 barrels a year.
Okay.
So that limits you to something like 60 brewers in the U.S. maybe. But that's 60 opportunities just in the U.S. brewing market.
So are there any specific breweries that you're in talks with right now that might be coming on board soon that we can expect some stuff out of?
I'm talking to everybody, but really the brewers and Purpose Energy are both being pretty cautious. The facility we have at Magic Hat is brand new. Everybody wants to watch it and make sure it works, right? We want to make sure all the bugs are worked out, the kinks are worked out, and make sure it operates smoothly. We need to make sure that it's going to meet the numbers because nobody wants to make a large capital equipment investment and then have it backfire. So give us a little bit of time. I think the brewing community is small, and I think most people are aware of the project, and I think it was very generous of Magic Hat to let us do serial number 1 on their site. But it'll be interesting to see who actually has the intestinal fortitude to take serial number 2.
So obviously there's a sweet spot for you. You've touched on that. What about producing your system and making it larger to sort of fit in, say, an Anheuser-Busch?
Well, there's no doubt that the systems can scale. Your typical Anheuser-Busch brewery is something like 8 million barrels a year. And we would love to have the opportunity to be able to play in that field. The question is, are we going to be able to make the economics work? I said before that we kind of have a 2-for-1 advantage, but I think not everybody knows that Anheuser-Busch is the largest biogas producer in the world. And they do that by treating their low-strength wastewater already. They've got their own proprietary system, the BERS system, and they produce a ridiculous amount of biogas, but that means they're already pre-treating their waste. So one of the values that we can provide is already gone, right? So our value is already cut in half. Now, the scale is large enough that the economics can make sense though, just on that one opportunity alone. And that's something that we'll have to learn over time.
Well, a lot of this stuff is way over my head. I think I have a little bit better understanding now. I think some of our readers will definitely be interested in this. And good luck. It sounds very unique and very exciting.
Thanks, Chris.